Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Color of Fandom Remakes and Reimaginings panel. I'm John LaPointe. I'll be your moderator. And I'm excited to be doing this panel because I suggested it the last 2 years and it just didn't get enough votes last year. So I'm glad we're doing it now. Um, Yesterday we did a panel about disabilities, which was kind of on the serious side. This is going to be more of a fun panel. Uh, I'd like my guest panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Deborah.
Hi, I'm Deborah Omer, and I'm excited for this panel too, because I am a film and TV buff.
Dad, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Justin LaPointe. I'm John's dad, and I have been a movie buff for many, many, many years, and I'm glad to be on this panel.
Okay, great. Just one thing before we jump in. What I've been to a lot of panels on remakes at conventions, and they all seem to fall into the trap of being a panel on why remakes suck. And uh remember particularly at retcon, and people will go on for 5 minutes about maybe a few remakes they like and then go on 45 minutes to just complain about all the horrible remakes there are out there. And there are a lot of horrible remakes out there, but we're going to try to do some, and we'll discuss them, but we're going to try to do some more positivity for this panel. And so we're going to start with remakes we liked, then remakes we hated, then remakes that only we like, that everyone's like, how could you possibly like that movie? And then finally, remakes that were a pleasant surprise. I'll get things started. First of all, I'm going to talk about The Thing. Now, I'm not talking about the more recent. I'm talking about the Kurt Russell movie that came out in the 80s, which, again, we called this remakes and reimaginings. That's really a reimagining of Who Goes There, which of course is a reimagining of At the Mountains of Madness, which is a reimagining of the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym. But in the original, um, the it was a humanoid vegetable vampire monster they fought. In the Kurt Russell, it was the doppelganger that kept taking the form of, the dog or the various people. It's a really, really good, scary movie. When we did Retcon, it was picked the best horror movie of the 1980s. And like I said, it's a reimagining. John Carpenter insists that the original is better. I think most people disagree with him that his version is better. The next one is The Fly, the David Cronenberg remake of a old Vincent Price movie. Almost universally praised. It and there's one guy at my church who doesn't like it for some reason, Dave Koontz. But other than that, people really loved the Cronenberg Fly with Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. Again, based similar plot. The guy tries to teleport and gets DNA mixed with a fly, but very, very different take. Cronenberg did a lot more body horror, a lot more gore than you would have found in the Vincent Price movie. And then let me see. It that almost came under the surprise category. One thing that'll come up at this panel is that uh, a lot of times certain actors, you think they're the only actor that can play that part, and in some cases that's true. They're too iconic for anyone else to do it. But I get a little annoyed with that attitude. Uh, and uh, I I got but I didn't think anyone could be as good as Pennywise and Tim Curry until I saw Skarsgård. and Skarsgård was such a terrific Pennywise. And so that's why that one, for many reasons, I love the new It movies. And because of that, they made my list. Uh Deborah, why don't you talk about some remakes you liked?
Okay. As I was telling the panelists before we got on, I have my things grouped in categories. Uh, but two of the ones that, because my first one was 80s horror remakes of older movies, and John had already mentioned two of them, which was The Thing and The Fly. Um, I also wanted to mention the Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, what a great movie. Yeah, with Louise Fletcher.
Yeah. Um, and then, but the one I really wanted to talk about in that category is Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh,
Um,
another great one.
because I'm a theater buff too. I love musicals. And if you turn anything into a musical, I'm automatically biased.
Mhm.
And the older version was just a straight, horror style movie. Um, and then when the 80s musical version came out um, with Rick Moranis, um, then I just think they improved on the story. I've seen the movie and the play and the director's cut of it. And I think the elements that they brought in for the music, especially with having Audrey too, talk and sing, just brought out so much more to it.
Well, I agree. And I saw the movie musical first, and then my high school did a theater production of it, and then my friend turned me and said, that's based on an old Roger Corman movie. And I said, no, I didn't know that. And so I got the DVD. It's like, oh wow. It wasn't one of Corman's best movies, but to be perfectly fair, he made movies that were a lot worse than that one.
Yeah.
But as far as musical goes, I'm gonna let Dad take it away now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I had a couple more,
I
but we can circle
Oh
back.
no, okay. We'll wait. We'll wait for Deborah to do her other two.
Okay. Um, and off of the Stephen King ones, because that was in my category of his, the It ones, I won't talk about that because people depending on when you grow up, some people like either one or both equally. But I know like my niece, I showed her the TV version after the new one, and she kind of, but just because of the way the storytelling was, she kind of liked the TV version more. But I do agree that Skarsgård is just as good as Tim Curry and Pennywise. But I wanted to talk about Pet Pet Cemetery.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
I think, of course, the original is the better version, but I did like the changes of Pet Cemetery, and I will watch it equally with the original version. I won't, just in case people spoilers or whatever, it came out a few years ago. But so I won't say the changes of it, but I do really like the remake of Pet Cemetery just as
I
much.
loved it. Of
Um,
course, I love Fred Gwynn going on about Dead is better, but John Lithgow was terrific in that role. I
he
went to the
was.
movie theater to see it, and of course, people kept screaming all the time. It's like, shut up! I'm trying to enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
But no, Pet Cemetery was excellent. If Deborah's done, I want
And
Dad.
Hold on.
I'm sorry. One,
Um,
okay. Mhm.
and my last one is the new um the new Wonka. Um
Are we talking about the DAP or the prequel?
um oh, you know what? That is a prequel. Let me scratch that then. That is too no, not the depth, but that is a prequel. Because I was when I was doing this, I was getting confused with I mean, not confused all the way, but for some of them, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a prequel. So yeah.
We watched the prequel this week, and it
Yeah,
is wonderful. It
yeah, but let
is.
me scratch that as a because it's not really a remake. I mean, it is a different story, but okay, so I will go to this point then, and then we can move on to Justin. But I think the best done remake franchise is Planet of the Apes. I think it's a very underrated franchise. I'm so excited for the new movie, the fourth movie that's coming out this year. But I mean, I watched the Charlton Heston one growing up all the time. But when they came out with Rise of the Planet of the Apes and then continued with those after the not so good Mark Wahlberg version, um, I really, really like all the Planet of the Apes, the new ones. And I think that gosh, what's the actor's name that does the mocap for Caesar? Um, he played Gollum and
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Andy
oh
Are you talking
Andy,
about Andy Serkis?
yeah, Andy Serkis. He does a really, I mean, he does a good job in all his stuff, but like him as Caesar was amazing. Okay, I'm done.
Dad, your favorite remakes.
Okay, my favorite remake is West Side Story. I saw the original West Side Story in 1962 and I loved it. Of course, I was a big Natalie Wood fan. Um, and the remake, uh, I, I, I was blown away. I just loved it too. And it was a real reimagining of West Side Story. And Spielberg put the movie in the actual time of 1957 when the stage play originally came out. And so I felt that Spielberg did really uh, gave a new look at the story, and he cast Rita Moreno in the part that originally had been was originally Doc, and Rita Moreno played Doc's widow, and she was magnificent. Um, so that's my favorite. Um, well, getting back to Willy Wonka, I love the Johnny Depp remake of Willy Wonka, but those are the ones that were favorites of mine.
Okay,
Is it
now we're
all
gonna
right, John? I know that I'm not on there as a
please.
but can I add some too? Because I had thought about some this morning that and if
Absolutely.
anybody's hearing an echo or anything weird, just let me know.
No,
This
it's
is
good.
Donna, by the way. I'm not on camera because my computer likes to trip. But I had actually when y'all were speaking about like West Side Story, it made me think I really liked the Romeo and Juliet that had Leo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. I thought it was so unique the way they did it. Very creative, somewhat surreal in a way. And so I greatly enjoyed that version of Romeo and Juliet. And then also going back to when you all were talking about musicals, I really liked Hairspray. I know that I think the original one wasn't a musical anyway. And so I liked the music in Hairspray, but I also like the social commentary, which I think is in both of them. But I thought that the way that they did Hairspray was really, really good. And then my last one and I might think of some others while y'all are talking, but Battlestar Galactica. So I'm a huge Battlestar Galactica fan anyway. I guess you would say a reimagining in a sense of it. The one that came out in 2004, I really like because this was a way for them to do a lot of social commentary, also make the cast much more diverse than what it was originally. And so I like the fact that that was the way that the showrunners and the writers went, was to use this story that had been told in the 80s, bring it current and make the cast very diverse. And I think that's one of the benefits when you are remaking or reimagining a show, is you get the opportunity to make it make it more inclusive, to reach a broader audience, and to comment on social systems and how they affect people. And so those are the ones I just thought of off the top of my head.
Right. Now we'll move on to the thing you can't do a remakes panel without: remakes that suck. And we'll start with probably the worst offender of the lot, Psycho. The remake of Psycho, which was terrible. And shot by shot remake of the original with not as good actors. I think that one made everybody's list. I know Hitchcock got into some trouble when the first came out, because they thought it might damage the mental health movement. And I was like, there was no mental health movement to damage in 1961. But
59.
59, excuse me. And so when the remake came out, a lot of mental health advocates were very much against it. I was defending the right to make a remake of Psycho. I can't believe I defended that thing after I actually saw it. It was so bad. And Rob Zombie, who we'll talk about in a little bit here, actually had images for it on his Living Dead Girl video. It's like, Living Dead Girl is based on a movie by Jean Rollin. It's gory, most of it. I don't know how much you could show in a video, but why not show that? Why show that horrible Psycho remake? The Haunting. This is a remake of an excellent 1960s horror movie that makes things very scary, just very subtly, with very subtle effects. The remake was about the exact opposite, and the remake is an example of good actors cannot save a bad movie. And another thing, special effects do not make an effective movie. This one starred Liam Neeson, who is no stranger to having to work with bad CGIs, having starred in The Phantom Menace, and Catherine Zeta-Jones, both excellent actors, and but just thrown into a movie where the filmmakers decided, oh, I think the best way to scare people is to throw lots of unscary special effects at them, which did not work. And it's kind of an insult, since the original was so good. An example of CGIs do not make a good movie: I Am Legend, with Johnny Depp. Not Johnny Depp. What's his name?
Will Smith.
Thank you, Will Smith. Will Smith is an exceptional actor. Well, we all knew he was a good rapper from the 80s. And he was an exceptional actor. Just watch the Men in Black movies. He could not save this. And the reason he couldn't save it is because they decided to make hordes of CGI vampires. And it is kind of like the hordes of red dragons in the D&D movie with Jeremy Irons that made no sense. I prefer, if you're going to use zombies, just use face paint like they did in Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, and we'll talk about Dawn of the Dead later. That's more effective, but you can do CGI zombies. I object to the whole notion of CGI vampires. Vampires should be done with fangs and makeup and, hire some extras to play hordes of vampires and don't do CGIs. And like I said, this was a reimagining of the Richard Matheson book that was remade as Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price and Omega Man with Charlton Heston. And at least in those, the monsters were people in makeup. That's Stepford Wives. I love Ira Levin. Stepford Wives is one of my favorite books, and I love the old movie. I hated the remake. I generally don't care for horror comedy because it normally fails to be funny or scary. This was certainly an example of that. And it's like, no, Ira Levin wrote a serious horror novel social commentary that they got right the first time. Please don't take that and turn it into a bad comedy. House on Haunted Hill. Again, huge Vincent Price fan, huge William Castle fan. Did not like the remake, but won't dwell when we're ready. And my last pick, before we move on, is House of Wax.
Oh,
That I knew
Well,
you.
you like that one?
No, I was waiting on that because I know you hate it so much.
I do, and it's a shame Kay couldn't be on this panel because she kind of liked it. But no, we'll talk about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in a minute, but anyone who's read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory knows you can't make a building out of chocolate without it melting. Same thing goes for wax. You cannot make a building out of wax and not expect it to melt in a few days. So that was ridiculous. Poor Jared Padalecki. He was also in Friday the 13th, the remake, which was terrible. And for what I know, I'm a stickler, but it's like, okay, Jason's not supposed to be the killer in Friday the 13th. It's his mom. But Jared Padalecki was trying in House of Wax and failing. And it starred Paris Hilton. Okay, rule number 1: never cast Paris Hilton in your movie because it will suck. And Paris Hilton is fabulously wealthy and cannot act. There's no reason she needs the money to subject us to her bad acting. It's like, go back with all the money you have. Stop making bad movies. Okay, those are my list. Dad, why don't you take it away with remakes you did not like?
okay, well, unfortunately, the ones I have are ones John has already mentioned, but Psycho. Now, I didn't see the original Psycho. I could have, but I didn't, because I stayed away from horror movies.
But you saw it later.
I saw it later, and it's a masterpiece. The remake was terrible. Vince Vaughn is possibly the worst Norman Bates ever. There were good people in the cast, but it was, as John says, it was a remake, scene after scene. There was no originality, no reimagining. It was just not good. Stepford Wives, again, powerful movie. The original was powerful movie, had a good point, but the remake was horrible. And it didn't matter that who was it?
Well, it had a good cast.
They had a good cast. The guy, can't think of his name right now. He was in so many things. Anyway, and House of Wax, that wasn't even, well, it was a reimagining, but it was a reimagining that really, really sucked. Major, big time. The original, there were two There was the 1930s version of Mystery of the Wax Museum, which was great. Had Fay Ray in it. The 50s version, which I didn't see because I was too young, with Vincent Price, was great. Love it. But that thing that came out in the 2000s was strictly for the birds. And well, can't say enough bad things about House of Wax.
Okay, in that case, we will turn it back over to Deborah for remakes she didn't like.
Okay. I will try not to get on a long soapbox or dissertations that I have about stuff like this. But I have two groupings. The first one is all of the 90s classics, that 90s Disney animated classics that they turned
Yes.
into live action.
Yes.
So the only one Disney, they slowly started making the 80s ones, and they did pretty okay with like Dumbo and the Jungle Book. And
I like Jungle Book.
I don't know what happened after that when they started moving to the 90s versions. I mean, a lot of them were cringe, even though I like Will Smith's acting. I mean, the Aladdin was not, and I like some of the elements that they put into, like Jana was saying, like when they update, things, they can put, more diversity and everything like that, which I really appreciated with Little Mermaid. And they gave, more characterization to some of the animated characters that didn't have it. But the animals can't emote anything like they can in an animated form when they're CGI or whatever the live action version is. And they take you way out of the movie. I mean, Lion King was the worst for that. And then you could hear the actors, like you knew that was Nala was Beyonce. It wasn't like a different, voice for her. And then like Flounder just looked like a dead fish in the new the new Little Mermaid. It's just you can't and then they're making a new prequel Mufasa in live action. I just want them to stop. I can't take it anymore. Um, I not try not to be that person because I know things are made for newer generations.
This is all about going on about the ones that suck. And like I said, yeah, I'm not gonna go see the live action Lion King. For one thing, that was me and my ex-girlfriend's movie. So but no, I've heard horrible things about the remake of the Lion King. So
Yeah. And then
uh,
my second grouping is, well, not grouping, it is just one movie, but the franchise is a grouping that the remake was made from. Um the Child's Play remake that wasn't supposed to happen, but did happen because of the studio had rights to it, had open rights to it, but it should have been named a different thing. They took the namesake Child's Play and reimagined this into what Megan did better, which was, an AI robot, AI doll. And it could have been named something else and it might have been, received better than them taking the Child's Play name and making this remake, because the Child's Play franchise is the only franchise in horror that has never lost its creator and creative team. And when I went to Carolina Fear Fest in 2019, I think, I talked to the actor that played Andy, or Anne that plays Andy now. Um, And they were saying when they found out, when Don Mancini, which is creator of Child's Play, found out that that the remake was being made, they were hurt because nobody talked to them. They were already in production, in pre-production, and making the TV show, the Chucky TV show, and you know, they just, you know, didn't understand why this movie was being made. And the TV show is great. Everything is canon, and all those movies, they run right into the TV show, and now they're even going to make a new movie now. So, like I said, if you are a Chucky fan, just because I am, I grew up, you know, watching Child's Play, and I still, you know, sit on this soapbox that I do not like that they made a remake.
Well, I know that's your franchise.
I
Donna, did you want to jump in with any remakes you hated?
Yeah, I actually have a pretty lengthy list, but I do want to go back to one that I liked. A lot of people didn't like it as much. I really actually liked it, was the remake of The Shining, when it was I think it was on television. It was like a mini
Love
series of
that.
maybe like 2 episodes or 3 episodes.
Mhm.
I really liked it because it was so much truer to the book, but a lot of people have talked about it and they haven't been crazy about it. And another one that I like, but I like the original more. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a serious Hellraiser person. And I did like the reimagining of it, and I like the cast. I think though it left out a very important element that to me Hellraiser has, which is the sexual component. That seemed to get replaced with an addiction component rather than the sexual aspect. And so I hate that that wasn't really there, but it's not a remake that I don't like. So I did want to say that. But in terms of the ones that I don't think were done that well, Fright Night, I was not a fan. I really liked the original. I wasn't a fan of the newer one. I don't think it was bad. I just didn't really care for it. Mainly because probably because of the actors. I just really like the actors in the original one. Carrie, I have two Stephen Kings, so Carrie and Firestarter. Didn't care for either one of those. And Deborah, I know you mentioned I think like I don't know if you mentioned The Stand as one.
Oh no, I didn't. I
Okay,
had
because
a long list of Stephen King. I had to pick and choose though.
yeah, I was not a fan of The Stand. We never even, I finished it. It took probably about a year, it seems like, for me to finish this because I thought it was boring, and I just could not get into it.
I didn't do the timeline right on The Stand.
Yeah, they didn't. And then I don't think they cast as well for the newer one that like they did for the original one. A Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the things I loved, and I grew up on that. And so part of what made Freddy Krueger so interesting was that there was some humor in with his character. But you don't really get that in the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a whole lot darker. And I like the balance of the humor and the horror in the original and in those sequels. But that remake just lost all of that humor. The Amityville Horror remake with Ryan Reynolds, I don't think the movie was terrible, but I kept waiting for Ryan, and really you shouldn't typecast people. It's not fair to them. But I just kept waiting for him to do something funny, So it just seemed kind of it didn't work for me. I don't think it was bad, but it just didn't work for me. And my last one is Twilight Zone, when it was, and really it's just because I found the newer Twilight Zones to just be boring. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily sometimes they do an episode, they remake a particular episode, but and I know there have been different iterations of Twilight Zone over the years, but the newest one to me just it would, when you got to the end of the episode, you were kind of like, that's it, you know? And so actually I just stopped watching it because there were, it just didn't grab me. It just seemed to be kind of boring. So those are the ones that were off the top of my head.
Okay, moving right along. I'm going to bounce off of what Donna said because a lot of the films she mentioned made my later list. Remakes that only you liked, that everyone's like, how could you like that movie? And we'll start with our good friend Stephen King and The Shining and Carrie. I gotta agree about The Shining, absolutely. I have so many problems with the Kubrick movie, and I have this problem with this attitude some fans have that Kubrick is this brilliant film director who improves on the works of hack writers like Stephen King. And I did not care for the Kubrick Shining at all. I loved the TV show, made for TV movie. I mean, Kubrick, well, I guess I'll go ahead and spoil The Shining. I'm sure it's, Kubrick insisted on killing Halloran, which was not in the book or in the other version. Kubrick seemed to spend half the movie cataloging the contents of the kitchen, and then the other half was just basically a slasher film where Jack Nicholson's chasing Shelley Duvall with an axe. It's like if you read the book or watch the other, it's such a, and I know the book's long, it's 750 pages, and you can't do that in a movie. And but you can do it better in a made for TV thing. But um, rather than deal with a man who's struggling with his alcoholism, Kubrick decided to make a slasher film. And the timing was so bad on the Kubrick film. It was like, okay, you have 2 hours to tell a 750-page story. Please don't spend half it cataloging all the food in the kitchen. Now, Donna mentioned Carrie. This is one I actually liked. There were actually two remakes of Carrie. And this is one of my favorite Stephen King books, by the way, because for one thing, it's one of his first, and it's concise. Unlike The Shining, which is 750 pages, or The Stand, which is 1,200 pages and took down all year to read, or It, which is 1,500 pages. This one's only a little over 300, so King's actually concise for a change. But I love the story. As someone who's bullied, I love the story of Carrie. And what I loved about the remakes, uh, was that, yeah, what a lot of people hate about the remakes is that they updated it. In the latest version, dealt with cyberbullying, which is such an important issue. And I thought that was a neat twist to add something contemporary like cyberbullying. And none of the versions, by the way, got the characters exactly the way they're in the book. Carrie is always portrayed as weaker in the book, in the movies. In the book, she stands up to her mother and curses her out. She doesn't do that in any of the films. She's much too passive. But Sissy Spacek, who's a wonderful actress, did a good job. Just plays Carrie's like completely spineless, like a jellyfish. And that's not how she is in the book. And Piper Laurie, another great actress, kind of sounds more like a banshee than a person in the movie. I like Patricia Clarkson's more understated Margaret. I really like Julianne Moore's Margaret White because Julianne Moore just made Margaret more sympathetic, I thought. And but I liked all the versions. Now I bumped into Nancy Allen. It was either in Raleigh or Durham at a screening of Dressed to Kill. And she hated this was before the most recent version. She hated the Angel of Addis version. And I think a lot of actors, Annette O'Toole was this way about it, can't stand if they remake a movie that they were in. Then we'll move right along. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory we mentioned. I liked this one, but the Depp Burton, but this is a very divisive movie because people either seem to love it or hate it and are very vehement in their opinions about this film. When I went to Mad Monster, Deep Roy, who played the Oompa Loompas, was one of the guests, and we were hanging out with him in the restaurant. And I went up to him and told him I liked the version he was in better. And a bunch of people, maybe this is because this is a horror convention, the Depp version was in some ways darker,
Mhm.
but uh, they loved it. Then the 2 weeks later, we went to Retcon, and people could not go on about how terrible, went on and on about how terrible the Donnie Depp movie was. So Tim Burton movie was. So I guess that's your perspective. The other one that a lot of people did not like is Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. I liked them. And uh, again, a lot of people hate a backstory. And that's why so many people hated Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They gave Willy Wonka a backstory. It's like, but we got to see Christopher Lee. We got to see Christopher Lee act. Same thing with Mike. I thought it added that you had sessions with Michael as a kid with Malcolm McDowell's Dr. Loomis, he was a good Dr. Loomis. I mean, I love Donald Pleasance, of course, but I thought it added something, that Rob Zombie added something to that movie.
I think you'll
And
find like there are factions of people in the horror community that is
yes,
very divisive. It's like people either love me being in other parts of the horror, like with the podcast, my podcast that Donna and I listen to. There are
Mhm.
people who really, really love Rob Zombie's version like you,
Yeah,
or really, really hate it. It's a split with the horror.
it is, and I think that's true with I think it's true with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think it's true with The Shining. Um, uh, One of the attitudes I hate, there's certain films that, yes, the actor is iconic. And like Tim Curry is Dr. Frankenfurter. And if you ever saw the remake of the Rocky Horror Don't. I don't
Oh,
mind they
the
made
musical they did on TV.
yes. I don't mind a black woman Frankenfurter, but that thing was terrible. I went to a GalaxyCon. I talked to Barry Bostwick. He goes, "That thing was crap." But no, I don't like to say only one actor, only Tim Curry can play Pennywise, or only Jack Nicholson can play Jack Torrance, or only Sissy Spacek can play Carrie, or only Gene Wilder can play Willy Wonka. I don't like that attitude. It's like, no, these are classic books being made into movies again. They're going to be different actors playing the part. But Deborah, are there any films that you like that your friends like? How could you like that remake?
So, this movie like is not like my favorite, or yeah, I wouldn't even say love, but I like it, and the implications that it was supposed to have was the newest Mommy. Now, there are some people who know the background of this movie, um, and have the same feelings that I have. And so when this movie was announced, I guess in the film community, or people who know, it was supposed to be the start of Universal's reimagined Universal Monsterverse, coming back from the original ones. And they had all these actors. They even have a picture, I don't know if it's probably still up, of all these actors that were going to be each monster. And like Johnny Depp was going to be the Invisible Man, and Angelina Jolie was going to be Bride of Frankenstein. And so, and gosh, the guy who played uh Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I can see his face, but anyway. And then this version of the Mummy. But wildly out, it just looked like a remake of people thought it was a remake of the Brendan Fraser version, which it wasn't. But because of that, and then the people who don't like Tom Cruise, it got, some, and then the movie itself, of course, like CGI and things like that. Some things, people are heavily weighed on, it had all that stack up against it. So nobody liked that movie, just because of the preconceived notions of it. And because I knew what was happening, and I loved Russell Crowe's version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I hated that that movie bombed and blew up the whole universe. And people who have my same thoughts think that they should have came out with the Dr. Jekyll movie first to introduce the Universal Monsterverse before everything else, so it wouldn't seem like they were remaking the Brendan Fraser's Mummy, which wasn't the case.
Well, it's interesting you talk about Johnny Depp and franchises. They were going to go make a Johnny Depp Thin Man movie. And Dad loves those old noir movies, and he loves Johnny Depp. So he's like, oh, yeah, Johnny Depp's going to play Nick Charles. And for some reason, it never happened.
Mhm.
But Dad, oh, I know what your answer is going to be. We'll get a lively discussion on this, but go ahead.
Oh, only I liked The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage. I mean, I saw both Wicker Men. I saw the original and I saw the remake. And because of Nick Cage, I really got to like his character. Now, in the original, I really didn't. I mean, of course, I didn't like the idea that the policeman got sacrificed at the end, but I didn't really care that much. I'm sorry to say. On the original, well, Nick Cage, when they got him, and I felt bad. I felt badly for him. So that was something, and apparently a lot of people did not like the remake of Wicker Man.
I think you and I are the only people who liked it. But Donna, you got any films that you like that everyone's like, how can you like that movie, Donna?
I have one, but actually people do like it, I think. But I have heard people say it's not as good as the original, and that was Bram Stoker's Dracula, which
Love
I
that.
liked that one a lot, but I will say the criticism I've heard about it, I agree with. Bless Keanu Reeves' heart. I like him in a lot of things, but he could not stick the landing on this one. Also, just with accents, things like that, that could kind of pull you out of a movie. However, Gary Oldman was awesome. And so I really think that that was, I don't know how much that one is very divisive, but I have just heard conversations about, the old one was better. So, but I really don't have any other ones. You all have named pretty much the ones that I might have liked, or you named the ones that you like that I didn't. But there are very few movies that are remakes where I like the remake better than the original. So that's it for me.
Well, that's cool. And I gotta agree with Bram Stoker's Dracula. Some people say, well, it wasn't exactly Bram Stoker's Dracula because there was the love interest.
Well, neither was the 31.
None of them were.
The
So
31.
oh, go ahead.
Could I say that the classic old horror movies are, Video Hound loves to give them 4 bones, but they weren't faithful. The original Frankenstein was not that faithful to Mary Shelley's book. And so I preferred Kenneth Branagh's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to the original, which is, I know, heresy, but it was closer. Not exactly, but closer.
What I was going to say is Bram Stoker's Dracula is one of the first horror movies I saw in the theater because my mom didn't let me watch those movies. And then Dad found out they were going to do another version of Dracula, and he read up about it, and it was pre-internet. It was so we read about it in print, and he goes, "Well, we're going to go see this movie." Okay, once it surprised me. Donna already mentioned it, Hellraiser. I gotta disagree with Donna. I didn't like any of the Hellraiser movies after part four. Particularly hated the one with, I love Lance Henriksen, and I'm so nice to meet him at Man Monster, but the one he was in was, I just did not like. It also starred Paris Hilton, so that was a strike against it. But I didn't like anything after part four, so I was really hesitant about a Hellraiser remake. I didn't mind Pinhead being a woman, of course. Um, but I thought, is this going to be like all these Hellraiser sequels that I hated? It wasn't. It was great. As far as changing gender roles, Ghostbusters. Again, I had no problem with women Ghostbusters, but I'm like, I love the original Ghostbusters. I don't generally like horror comedies, as I've mentioned before, but Ghostbusters nailed it. It was scary, it was funny, it was perfect. I did not like Ghostbusters 2. And I thought after Ghostbusters 2, if the remake's anything like Ghostbusters 2, it's going to be terrible. It wasn't, it was great. And uh, 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 it I love the female Ghostbusters. I loved everything about that movie. Suspiria. I think Dad actually liked that one better than the original. Of course, I love Suspiria. I love Argento. I got my copy of Suspiria signed by Jessica Harper. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Argento and Suspiria. So it's very dubious about Suspiria. But what I loved about Suspiria is totally unlike Psycho. They tried to make a very different movie when they remade Suspiria, and I think it worked. And the one last thing, zombie movies. You know, we're all, Deborah, Donna, and I love zombie movies. Dawn of the Dead. I like the original a little bit more, but I love the remake of Dawn of the Dead. And Night of the Living Dead. I wasn't as crazy about the original as a lot of people are. I mean, it's an important, influential movie, but I love the remake. First of all, we all knew Tom Savini was a brilliant makeup and effects guy, but he can direct. And I love that Romero revised his script. I like the ending better. I felt Barbara was a strong woman in the original, but I felt the Barbara character was even stronger in the remake. So I like both of those. I guess we've been doing Donna last for before Donna. Remakes that surprised you. You were going in, it's like this isn't going to be any good, and it was.
Oh, wow. Actually, come back to me because I did not
Great.
think about that.
Does someone have the car key?
Hold on. Deborah, I'm sorry, we're being interrupted by a dog here.
Oh.
Deborah, did you want to
Yeah, I'll go.
go ahead?
John's list was perfect. Yeah, I agree with everything. Only one I did want to add was Evil Dead. I avoided that movie for a while, even though I'm not like a huge Evil Dead fan, but I mean, I guess I am because I watched the series and have the DVD for it. But I mean, like not like crazy like some of my other movies or franchises. But the remake was really good and on par. I guess it was sort of reimagining too, but like, it had uh hate when I forget names like that, but the blessing, it had the DNA of the original, and you could tell that the people that made it really cared about, the franchise, and it updated it with the addiction aspect of it, but it made it like it it gave it heart, and it, and it made it, really, really good. As a different version of, what Evil Dead is known for, but it was still a really good um remake. And I think a lot of people watch it, just as much as they watch the other ones.
Sorry, we had a thing going on back here. Dad, movies that surprised you.
Okay, but I didn't go in thinking it was going to be awful. But a movie that surprised me in a good way was West Side Story, because I loved that Spielberg tried to recreate 1957 New York City, which I admire that kind of thing. Quentin Tarantino did it for Los Angeles in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I admired that. I loved Rita Moreno in the new part. I thought she really added to the movie. It was gritty. It was grittier than the musical, more, in many ways, more realistic than the musical, the original musical that I loved too. So it surprised me in a lot of ways, but they were good ways. Uh, and it's a movie that I could watch again and again.
Okay, Donna, why don't you finish us off with remakes that were surprisingly good?
Or surprisingly bad.
Oh, we could do that too.
I will say that the ones that I'm thinking of, they're not necessarily remakes. So they might be more reimaginings or
Sure, that works.
prequel type situations, but
Yeah, prequels.
yeah, I mean, I really liked Clarice, even though it got canceled. And that's in the Hannibal Lecter world. And I liked Hannibal. So both of those being, I think, a reimagining or retconning your characters or whatever. Clarice didn't do that well. Hannibal did, but I actually liked both of them. And so I think that's pretty much it. I really don't watch that many remakes, so that might be why I don't have a lot of information on that. Ones that were surprisingly bad, we have already named a lot of them, because there were some that I really thought were going to be better than they were. I really thought Fright Night was going to be better. Total Recall is one where it was surprisingly bad to me. I mean, maybe it's because I really like the original. So I just couldn't get into the newer version. So it's funny how, because isn't
He is.
Colin Farrell in
Yes.
Fright Night and Total Recall? And so
Yeah, that was an ongoing joke about him making remakes. He needs to stop.
yeah, he seems to do much better when he is not doing any type of genre stuff, and when he's not doing remakes. So those are the surprisingly bad ones.
You made me think of Fantasy Island.
Oh my gosh,
Horror
yes.
remake of Fantasy Island that came out in 2020.
Yeah, that one was cringeworthy to me.
Well, I was going to say about reimagining these prequels. I love Bates Motel with Freddie Highmore.
Yeah.
As Norman Bates. What of course I love the original Psycho, and then I hated the remake, and I felt that series redeemed the Psycho and Norman Bates Motel whole franchise for me. That we got a good actor playing Norman. And the thing about Norman is it's like watching Lex on Smallville or the Star Wars prequels. You have this character you love that you know is going to turn completely evil. And there's nothing, no matter how much you like this character, you know what's going to happen to, their fate, what's going to happen to them. Well, we got about a minute.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely, Deborah.
Because I did extend the time for my next thing. But the off of that, for what I was originally saying, since we brought this in to the reimagining of the prequel for Wonka, is excellent.
Yes,
Like
I
I said,
agree.
I'm already biased because it's a musical, even though um Willy Wonka was a musical. I mean, the Gene Wilder version, it wasn't a heavy musical, but it were songs in it. So I don't know why people who didn't like care for this version didn't like it because it had music in it, because it's they both had music in it. But like I wouldn't mind seeing more of these, like maybe another or a trilogy of these leading up to the Gene Wilder version. I mean, I know it's a different, they have a different black backstories too. I mean, even though they didn't really put a big backstory into Gene's version, I just really like how they did Wonka, and I think Timothy Chalamet did a great job embodying like the prequel version of Wonka, of Willy Wonka.
What I was gonna say is that, does anyone in the chat want to unmute and
Ask questions.
yeah, or say, remakes you really liked or remakes you really hated, anything we didn't cover, anyone want to unmute? And
I was wondering about, Lord of the Rings was a cartoon series.
yeah, I should have thought of
Frodo
that
and stuff,
more.
and then then it was the blockbuster Lord of the Rings. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a remake? Is that a sequel? Is that a remake? But yeah.
I
I
really
love-
liked the Lord of the Rings movies.
Mhm.
I'm really looking at it more. I never saw the cartoon, but I read the books, and the books are so long and tedious that this was done better as a
Yes.
movie. Like sometimes people say the book is better, not in this case. The movies.
Well, I loved the the live action Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King Rankin Bass did was okay. I didn't care for the Bakshi film, but then they did The Hobbit, and I love the old Rankin Bass Hobbit, of course. And The Hobbit's one of my favorite books. Is what it was the first non little kid book I read, and I love everything to do with The Hobbit. And talk about movies no one else liked. A lot of people panned the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies. As a Hobbit fan, I loved those movies. So, Brian, did you want to unmute, tell remakes you liked, remakes you hated, anything like that? Well, if not, I guess we're 3 hours over time. Uh, I'd like to thank
Oh, we have another question.
Absolutely.
So Deb, you didn't like Aladdin. I know Will Smith being blue is a little weird, but what was your take on the woman who played Jasmine? Like I thought.
Oh, I thought she was good. A lot of for what I was saying for those movies, because they all get grouped together, like, and I was trying to explain it really fast. But like, as I liked Aladdin a little bit more some than some of the other ones. I like Jasmine in that movie. And a lot of the actors, like the live action actors, are actually decent. It's just everything else. And I love the actress as yeah, and I'm trying to think. But anyway, it's just a lot of the other elements out of those live action versions that just don't make the movie as a whole gel together.
Brian, did you want to say something?
Yeah, John, you asked a question to me about what remakes or
Remake did or didn't like.
oh, the one. I mean, I'm not gonna give it a really bad rap. I mean, it was pretty good. It was that all-woman cast for Ghostbusters.
Yeah, we mentioned that one. Yeah,
Yeah, it was okay.
I liked it, but I liked it better than Ghostbusters too. Anyway.
The remake I don't care for was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, with Johnny Depp. I didn't really care for that one too much.
Well, that's like Rob Zombie's Halloween. It's very divisive among fans. Like
Yeah.
I said, people at Mad Monster loved it, and then 2 weeks later, people at Retcon hated it. Well, we are 5 minutes over time. I wanted to thank my panelists, Deborah, Donna, and of course my dad Justin, for coming here, and thanks to the audience. I'm so thrilled that after trying to get this on the schedule for 3 years, we finally get to do our panel. So
Yeah.
thanks everybody for coming.
And thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mhm.
It's great.
You know,